Welcome to Football Night in Chicago, powered by PointsBet. I'm David Haugh. We've got one more week of Bagent Mania. Courtney Cronin is in studio to break it all down, and we'll also talk about Roquan Smith's harsh but true words about his former team. Plus, former Bears quarterback Erik Kramer also in studio. We'll ask him about his personal journey and what inspired him to write his new book. This is Football Night in Chicago, and it starts right now. The odds for tomorrow night's Thursday night game are shifting. That's the focus of tonight's best bet, powered by PointsBet. And would you have look at that? The Bears are favored by -3.5. Only the second time that has happened this season. Well, the reason? Maybe because Justin Fields is doubtful to whatever Matt Eberflus said today to make his return from a dislocated thumb.
Like you said, he's not medically cleared to go right now, and he's getting better though. Right now, we're listing him as doubtful, and we'll see where it goes from there.
If he's not medically cleared, well, how come doubtful versus out?
Yeah, just to see. We got to give him one more day. But he's working hard, and it's getting better every day. So we'll see where it goes.
He's not playing tomorrow.
Yeah, he's not playing.
Let's go on the beat with Courtney Cronin from ESPN, brought to you by ChevyDriveChicago.com. Okay, Courtney, I don't know if you are fluent in flu speak, but please interpret how Justin Fields is doubtful, but he's out, but he's doubtful. You were there. What did you hear? What does it mean?
I heard a verbal jigsaw puzzle, which we have become accustomed to this season. But what it means is that he's not playing. Matt Eberflus opened up his press conference today saying that Justin Fields has not been medically cleared. So the thumb is not at a point where the medical staff thinks he's safe to play. So Tyson Bagent's starting. Nathan Peterman will be the backup. And they may decide, depending upon what happens in the next 24 hours, to put Justin Fields through a workout pregame. But that's really for the future. They want to get him in this ramp-up period to continue to get reps, to continue to throw the ball, to continue to get comfortable. So potentially 10 days from Thursday night when they're in Detroit, again, an indoor stadium. I think that also factors in with the weather conditions where it might be better served to come back in a controlled environment. That might be better for Justin Fields. But yes, it was kind of a word salad today. We were all sorting through it with what Matt Eberflus said. But Justin Fields, you heard him there in that second question. He will not play on Thursday.
Is it gamesmanship? Is it clumsiness, awkwardness, or is there a scenario? I know you just said he would be out. Is there a scenario where Justin Fields is the closer tomorrow night against the Panthers?
So doubtful by textbook definition of what that means per the NFL's rule book. That's 51% that you will not be playing in this game. That's something Matt Eberflus once again referenced today. But for him to come into this game, if they were in that closer role, if we're theorizing that could be a possibility, if somehow the thumb is great, he's able to go through a workout, and he's on track for Thursday night, I just don't know if that would be the best decision. And the Bears have to think about this long term. They don't want Justin Fields to get himself more injured if he goes out there. And bottom line, this comes down to the medical clearance. If the medical staff looks at that thumb and says that there's any swelling, although Matt Eberflus did say there hadn't been any setbacks coming out of practice or anything like that, but if there is anything that the medical staff looks at and says you are not ready to go, like the buck stops with them. So gamesmanship, maybe some clumsiness up there, maybe not trying to give the Panthers any sort of a competitive advantage. But let's remember, these are NFL staffs. They have eyes and ears everywhere. That's kind of what it boils down to, but expect Tyson Bagent out there for his fourth
Okay,
start.
The Bagency remains open. He did turn the ball over against the Saints. It got in the way. The fourth quarter outweighed the first three, which were very good. What does he have to do? Where's the confidence level in the Bears, in the rookie from Shepherd University, that he can take a step against the Panthers?
Those first three quarters that you mentioned, I asked him about, the confidence level that he has coming off of that game, and he realizes he played 48 good minutes of football, but he threw 3 interceptions, and these were balls that were off target, balls that were a little bit late. That's on him as a quarterback, timing up his drop with the receiver's routes that he's 4 games into starting as an NFL quarterback. That takes time. Now, there are a lot of things that the Bears feel positive about with the way that he was able to get the ball out quickly, the way that he was able to utilize his legs in scrambling situations to pick up first downs. He managed the game really well in an really tough environment down there in New Orleans. So can he do that again against a defense that's not going to have Brian Burns playing on Thursday Night Football? And in the Bears, as you mentioned, they're favored. That's the second time that's happened. The only other game was Green Bay. So clearly, if health can trend for this offense in the right direction too, with Braxton Jones being able to play a full game, maybe they get Khalil Herbert back and they can be more multiple in the backfield too, then that could mean good things for Tyson Bagent. But one thing I thought was kind of interesting today, he was asked about DJ Moore, and this is, certainly a big storyline that we've followed all season long. The lack of targets, the underutilization for DJ Moore. If you want to get this thing going and get it going quickly, you've got to target your skill. You've got to do exactly what they did on that opening drive, as aggressive as they were, targeting Darnell Mooney, targeting Cole Kmet, the play action throws, getting DJ Moore involved. That's how Tyson Bagent's able to take that next step, whether this is his last start or whether he will continue playing on, depending on how Justin Fields' thumb is.
Days like today will not inspire confidence in Matt Eberflus moving forward. You lose to the Panthers, maybe the worst team in football, and it certainly will raise even more legitimate questions about his job security. Is Matt Eberflus in jeopardy of losing his job if the Bears lose to the Panthers Thursday night?
I don't believe so. I think that the vote of confidence that Ryan Poles gave Matt Eberflus last week when he had his post-trade deadline press conference, that may not be a vote of confidence for the future, because there's a lot of things that can be considered here in the back half of the season. But that, to me, said that under no circumstances would Flus be fired in season. Otherwise, you don't go and make a comment that stands behind the coach. That's that strongly worded. But there's a lot at stake here for a game where you have 2 teams coming in with 3 combined wins. The draft pick that the Bears have right now, number 2 overall, that belongs to the Carolina Panthers. This is about as must-win of a game as any on the schedule for Chicago this year, because they want to maintain that draft positioning, which is why it feels like the ante is upped, even though this is a 2-7 football team facing a team that has 1 win.
Speaking of Ryan Poles, he's the guy who traded Roquan Smith a year ago, the linebacker now with the Ravens. Roquan spoke with Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated on Monday and had this to say about being traded to the Ravens. Quote, "It was bittersweet for me just knowing Chicago, but if I would have stayed there, honestly, I wouldn't have been able to compete for a title anytime soon. Man, it makes me so happy just knowing my career is not going down the drain in the sense of playing somewhere I'm truly not competing for a title." You get out of Chicago and you're thrilled because at least I'm not with the Bears, that a franchise going nowhere. That's got to sting a year later.
Absolutely, but let's not sugarcoat this. There's no love lost between either side. Certainly Roquan Smith wanted to be paid at the level he was, resetting the linebacker market for a weak side linebacker who's an off-ball linebacker, and he was able to do that in Baltimore. It was not what the Bears were willing to pay. So he got his money, and he's on a team now that's at the top of their division in the AFC North. And of course, you're going to look back at the Bears and say, well, if I was there, how much different would things be right now? This is a team that's still trying to get this rebuild off the ground, and Roquan Smith doesn't really need to have any sort of, I understand where the comments are coming from when you look back in hindsight at how things went down and him getting shipped off at the trade deadline, but let's not forget, he was really emotional last year when that happened.
And he wanted to stay.
And he wanted to stay. He wanted to be here. I also think that he's looking here, though, at what's going on in Chicago and the 2 linebackers that they did pay in the offseason, and, the production that TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds collectively have versus what he has in Baltimore. He should be feeling pretty good about the way that things worked out here.
I think so. He's with the better team. He's with the better franchise. To me, that doesn't change the fact I think it was a mistake. I think that they talked themselves into a guy who didn't fit the scheme, didn't have the takeaways, and wasn't their guy. I think this regime's got to be careful that they are not just unloading guys because they're not their guys. Roquan Smith has flourished in Baltimore, will continue to do so. And he's happy, let's face it also, he got paid.
Of course, and that's always what it's going to boil down to. And now that we're looking at the situation with Jalen Johnson, do they franchise tag him in the offseason? It feels like even he is expecting that to be the outcome after they didn't work out an extension at the deadline. But you saw them extend Montez Sweat immediately. I thought that was a big win for Ryan Poles and his staff to get that done as soon as he got into the building. But going forward, there are those players that you talked about that aren't their guys necessarily because they didn't draft them. But what about Darnell Mooney? What about Jalen Johnson? Are there others? What about Justin Fields down the line if he ends up staying here? I mean, they, lost in all of this. If when we talk about the day one starter for 2024 or not, we still have to think about May, the deadline for Justin Fields' fifth-year option. And of course, there will be a lot that happens before then, whether they draft a quarterback or not. But this front office has its work cut out for them. They've been busy this year, and it's only about to get busier in the offseason.
Courtney Cronin, she's fluent in flu speak. Thank you for being here. The minute the Bears-Panthers game ends tomorrow night, flip over here for the Football After Show. Ruthie Polinsky steers 90 minutes worth of analysis with Bears greats Lance Briggs, Alex Brown, and the head coach, Dave Wannstedt. That's tomorrow night, immediately after Bears-Panthers goes final only on NBC Sports Chicago. Time for our first break. Erik Kramer joins us in studio to talk about his new book and gives us his thoughts on the Bears quarterback situation. That's next. Tomorrow night, get ready for the Blackhawks to take on the Lightning with a special edition of Blackhawks Pregame Live. Pat Boyle, John Scott will be live at Lizzie McNeil's. That's tomorrow at 5:30 right here on NBC Sports Chicago. We welcome in former Bears quarterback Erik Kramer. His book and journey, The Ultimate Comeback, Surviving a Suicide Attempt, Conquering Depression, and Living with a Purpose. Quite a story to tell, Erik. Welcome. Thank you for coming here.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here and back in Chicago all at the same time.
So you have been through so much and you felt compelled to write about it, to share your story about your son's tragic death, about your own suicide attempt, and everything that you have persevered. Why was it important for you to share your story so others may learn from it?
I think that's why. I think there's so much in there just about, coming into the game itself, coming into the NFL, which I was a long shot to begin with, and then being able to play for as long as I did, which involved a couple years or a year and a half in the CFL. But then real life starts to take effect also. And even while here, I dealt with some depression, even while playing. And but it wasn't, it wasn't a steady stream of it 5 years in a row. But it taught me how to deal with it, even be proactive about it.
There's strength in being vulnerable, but I don't know that modern athletes have always accepted that or embraced that in the way that you did in this book and telling your story to other journalists and just being open about it. What's changed about that and what made you feel comfortable doing so?
Well, I think the process of just going through that whole business was just, I'm grateful for the recovery that I'm actually here. And so many people had a hand in that. And I think it's a story that deserves to be told. Again, there's so much focus now put on in the last several years, not just in the NFL, pro sports in general. Schools are now getting the infrastructure in place to have programs that deal with mental health. And I thought, well, okay, then let's jump on board here and maybe start to lead the way with some of that.
People cling to their faith. They always have their family. And certainly you have made a career in football. You hear that all the time, faith, family, football. What was the biggest thing that carried you through the darkest moments?
Well, I think just living in such a way that you're something's always ahead to prepare for, right? And in the NFL, it doesn't wait, and in life doesn't wait. And so you kind of have to deal with things as they come and sort of compartmentalize them in a way that allows you to go from wherever you are practicing to coming home to dealing with things that are outside of football. And so everybody's got that in some form or fashion. So I think this kind of speaks to that. This book does.
Want to talk about the Bears and certainly your legacy in Chicago, but before we get to that, the last thing about the book, how have you found it received in terms of the football community? This is not a story you hear told a lot. Certainly yours is unique. What has been the reception like for you as the author?
Which is interesting because I've never been called an author before. And so I just feel really good that I know, based on some of the feedback I've received so far, that this book is going to be pivotal in helping folks, either themselves who have had it or have it, or those that know someone who does have it and has dealt with it. And it's, for me, it wasn't, as, like I said, it doesn't come and hang around forever. It doesn't really announce when it's coming, and it doesn't really announce when it's leaving. And so there's, you know, some experiences in there that I've had that there's therapy, there's friends, there's other people that have kind of helped me through this along the way.
It's a powerful message. It's a great book and a terrific lesson for people to learn, and I hope a lot of people read it. Let's move to football. Do you know that you still have quite a legacy here in Chicago where quarterbacks have not exactly been developed or thrive, as you well know? Yeah. 1995 was still a very prolific year for Erik Kramer. Let's check out our stat of the day. Top of the list, single season passing yards in Bears franchise history. There you go. 3,838 yards, 60% completion percentage, 29 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Your passer rating 93.5. Jay Cutler's next. Look at that. But Jay Cutler did not do what Erik Kramer did. How much pride do you take in that?
A lot. In the fact that I was a long shot to even get in this league, to be honest with you. And I wasn't drafted. And so it took a while to kind of learn my way around. But once I did, it was really nice to finally actually feel comfortable doing this, which took a while.
We have a mutual friend. Coach Dave Wanstead is a big fixture here at NBC Sports Chicago. He's a weekly guest on the Mully and Haw Show on 670 The Score. He talks all the time. Boy, if Erik Kramer just would not have been injured, right, the future would have been limitless for Dave Wanstead in Chicago. What do you remember about that tenure?
I agree with him that I think had I not gotten hurt and, you know.
Broken back, right?
Neck.
That
right.
broken neck,
and,
wow.
And so I happen to be, and I don't want to make this a mutual admiration society, but I think that staff that Dave had here in Chicago was phenomenal. And we just didn't have kind of the top to bottom roster that it would have taken to kind of get over that hump. But I miss that I was hurt as often as I was.
How closely do you follow the Bears today? Do you have a thought on why this franchise has struggled so much in developing a franchise quarterback?
Yes, I do, and yes, I do. I do follow them. Why they've had so much problem, I don't know. But I know that to be successful, you've got to do a few things and do them well. You got to be able to play catch. You have to be able to read coverages, and you have to be able to locate. There's always going to be one defender, at least in a zone, that you've got to put in a bind. You've got to be able to either freeze him where he's at or help move him where he's going and throw around him. And that's something I haven't really seen a lot of, at least lately.
Do you believe, knowing what you do about this Bears roster, that the future of the franchise at the quarterback position is on the roster, or is that somebody to be drafted later?
I happen to be, in a very short time, a big Tyson Bagent believer, because he does all the things that I just said. And for a guy that can do it as soon as he has now done it, I know he had a bad fourth quarter this last game. But if you take the body of work for a young guy, he's way better than I ever would have been, had I not gotten cut as a rookie. So I just think there's promise there. Justin Fields, potentially, there could be, but he's got a ways to go, in my opinion. And so I think the Bears are kind of in a great position. They've got a lot of key pieces already drafted and either in place that way or free agency. They've got another great draft and free agency coming up. I think there's a lot of good things to build on right now.
You're in a room with Tyson Bagent. He has turned the ball over 8 times in 3.5 games. You want to give some advice to a young undrafted rookie free agent from Shepherd University, a Division II program. What would it be?
Well, the advice would be to practice every single day with a sense of timing and pace and rhythm. So the 2 or 3 interceptions he had in the fourth quarter, hanging onto the ball and get a strip sack, that was not that. And when he does play in that capacity, he's phenomenal. And I'm talking, it's not always going to be the first read. It's oftentimes the second or the third. But if you do that in rhythm, those equal first downs too. And the object of the game, get first downs, keep drives going, because that ends up in being touchdowns. And he has proven he can do that.
Last thing, when you're back in Chicago, as you are this week, what's the fondest memory that comes to mind about your days as a Chicago Bear from '94 to '98?
Well, there's a lot, more than just one. But I would say that, you know, I loved coming down to the city because I didn't live down here. And so being down here this time around, it's just fun being here, honestly. And there's obviously, everybody knows Chicago's got phenomenal restaurants. I honestly, when I come to games, here's what I miss. I miss being able to actually, when you're on the field, see the skyline. There's a sort of intimacy there that's no longer present that I do miss that. But in terms of football field memories, I mean, there was a lot of times we walked off the field just having a really good feeling of satisfaction, like, okay, job well done.
Erik Kramer, still a historically good quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Thank you for being here. A current NFL player was named a Sexiest Man Alive finalist, and you probably won't believe who it is. Stay with us to find out. The only guarantee of this football season is nothing will go according to plan. But the one thing you can't count on is PointsBet's Power Hour. Check the app every day from 5 to 8 p.m. for exclusive offers like boosted odds. New customers use the code Chicago10X to get in on all the action. PointsBet, now a Fanatics experience. All right, let's end tonight with some of the top stories around the league. Justin Jefferson is back at practice. The superstar wideout missed the last month. No word on whether he'll play Sunday. But how about this? The Vikings undefeated without him. Former Illini quarterback Tommy DeVito, now the starter in New York for the Giants. DeVito replaces Daniel Jones, who tore his ACL. DeVito will be the 10th rookie quarterback to start a game this year. That's an NFL record. And Travis may have the head-to-head Super Bowl win in the Kelce family, but Jason Kelce has some legit bragging rights now. The Eagles center and father of 3 included in People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive issue. Wow, Sexiest Man Alive. All right, Saturday night, the 65th annual Chicago and Midwest Emmy Awards are happening right here in your city for the first time ever. You can watch the show on NBC Sports Chicago starting at 7 p.m. Chicago native and comedian Godfrey is hosting the big event, and you may just recognize some familiar faces from the sports world during the show. That's this Saturday at 7 o'clock on NBC Sports Chicago. Yes, Kendall Gill, Will Perdue may make an appearance. You never know. Don't go anywhere. Layla, Kendall, and Will get you prepped for the Bulls and Suns as Kevin Durant visits the United Center. Bulls pregame live at the bottom of the hour. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.